I discovered my husband's business trip was actually his wedding when I saw the photo of him under a floral arch holding another woman's hand. His entire family stood behind them, beaming as if I had never existed. They expected me to scream. Instead, I quietly sold our $15 million estate before the cake was cut. When he dragged his new bride to our gate, he finally realized he held no keys to this game. My name is Zara Ortiz, and up until 10 o'clock this evening, I believed my life was a masterpiece of architectural precision. I have spent 20 years building Redwood Marlowe Consulting from a boutique firm into a global powerhouse, and I treat my personal life with the same rigorous attention to detail. I manage risk, I calculate outcomes, I do not like surprises. The air conditioning in the office hummed with the silence of a late Tuesday night. I was the last one on the executive floor reviewing the final compliance reports for a merger that had consumed my last 3 months. My neck was stiff and my eyes burned from the blue light of the monitor, but the work was done. I packed my leather briefcase, turned off the lights, and walked toward the elevators. The city lights of Seattle sprawled out below me through the floor-to-ceiling glass, a grid of gold and amber that usually made me feel powerful. Tonight, I just felt drained. My phone vibrated in my palm just as I pressed the call button for the elevator. It was a text from Grant. Landed in Denver. The hotel is a mess, but I will manage. Meetings start at 7 tomorrow. Love you, Z. I typed back a quick reply telling him to get some sleep. Grant had been stressed about this trip for weeks. He told me it was a crucial networking opportunity for his independent ventures, a chance to finally get some capital that did not come from my bank account. I wanted to support him. I always supported him. I stepped into the elevator and the doors slid shut, sealing me in a box of polished steel and silence. To decompress during the 40-story descent, I opened a social media app. It is a mindless habit, a way to switch gears from corporate shark to a human being before I get behind the wheel of my car. The algorithm usually feeds me interior design trends or stock market updates, but not tonight. Tonight, the first image on my feed froze the breath in my lungs. It was a photo posted by Marjorie Holloway, my mother-in-law. At first, my brain refused to process the visual data. I thought it was a memory, perhaps a flashback to a cousin's wedding or an old family reunion I had forgotten. But the resolution was too sharp, the fashion too current. Standing under a lush archway of white wisteria and imported hydrangeas was my husband, Grant. He was not in Denver. He was not in a messy hotel room. He was standing on a sun-drenched lawn that looked suspiciously like the vineyards in Napa Valley. He was wearing the cream linen suit I had bought him for our anniversary cruise last month, a suit he said he was saving for a special occasion. He was holding hands with a woman. I knew her, Tessa Lane. She was the 26-year-old event coordinator Grant had hired for a charity gala last year. I remembered her because she had spilled red wine on my rug and cried until I comforted her. In the photo, she was not crying. She was laughing, her head thrown back, wearing a fitted lace gown that was unmistakably a wedding dress. But the worst part was not Grant. It was not even Tessa. It was the background standing behind them, arranged in a perfect semicircle of support. Was the entire Hall family. Marjorie was there in a silver mother of the groom dress. Grant's sister, his uncle, his cousins, people I had hosted for Thanksgiving dinners, people whose debts I had quietly paid off, people who had hugged me at Christmas. They were all there. They were beaming. They looked radiant. I looked at the caption Marjorie had written beneath the photo. Finally, my son chose happiness. The elevator pinged and the doors opened to the parking garage. I did not move. The sentence hung in front of my eyes like a neon sign. Finally, as if the last 7 years of our marriage, the years where I built our life and secured his comfort, had been a prison he had just escaped. I did not scream. I did not hurl my phone against the steel wall. I felt a strange, cold sensation wash over me, like diving into a freezing lake. It was clarity, absolute terrifying clarity. I stepped out of the elevator and walked toward my car, my heels clicking a sharp, steady rhythm on the concrete. I unlocked my Audi and sat in the driver's seat, but I did not start the engine. Instead, I unlocked my phone again. I needed to analyze the evidence. I zoomed in on the image. This was not a spur-of-the-moment elopement. You do not get an archway of wisteria like that on short notice. The flowers were fresh and arranged by a professional. I recognized the signature style of a florist in Napa who requires a 6-month booking deposit. I moved my finger across the screen to Grant's left hand. He was not wearing the platinum band I placed on his finger 7 years ago. He was wearing a new gold ring, thick and ostentatious. I swiped to the next photo in Marguerite's album. It was a shot of the reception tables, crystal glassware, personalized menus with Grant and Tessa printed in gold foil script. This level of detail took months of planning. While Grant was telling me he was going to the gym, while he was working late on projects that never materialized, he was planning a wedding. I sat there in the dark garage, the silence ringing in my ears. I realized I was not crying. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyeliner was perfect. My expression was blank. I looked like I was reviewing a contract that had a minor error, not discovering the demolition of my marriage. Then I saw the detail that turned my shock into ice. I scrolled down to the comment section of the photo. I expected to see fresh confusion, people asking what is happening or where is Zara. Instead, I saw a comment from Grant's aunt posted on a different photo in the album, a picture of a rehearsal dinner. So glad to welcome Tessa to the family properly. It has been a long time coming. I looked at the timestamp of the comment. 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Grant was sitting at our kitchen island in Westbriar Hills, drinking the espresso I made him. He had kissed me on the forehead and told me he loved me before I left for work. Another comment from his cousin, dated 3 days ago on a photo of the bachelor party golf outing. The upgrade is finally official. 3 days. This was not a mistake. This was not a drunk weekend in Vegas. This was an orchestrated execution of my dignity. They had all known for days, perhaps months. The entire Holloway clan had been celebrating his betrayal while smiling in my face. They had planned this week-long celebration while I was working 16-hour days to pay the mortgage on the $15 million estate that housed his golf clubs and his ego. I put the phone down on the passenger seat. I started the car. The engine purred to life, smooth and powerful. I did not drive to the airport to confront him. I did not call Marjorie to demand an explanation. They expected that. They expected the emotional, hysterical wife who would beg for answers. They thought I would shatter. I drove toward Juniper Crest Lane. As I navigated the winding roads up to Westbriar Hills, my mind was no longer on the heartbreak. I was thinking about assets. I was thinking about title deeds. I was thinking about the power of attorney documents Grant had been too lazy to read thoroughly. Marjorie was right about one thing. Her son had made a choice. But as I turned into the driveway of the house that I bought, the house that I paid for, I realized she had forgotten something crucial. Grant had chosen a game where I was the only one who knew the rules. He wanted a new life. I decided right then, pulling into the garage of our silent, massive home, that I would help him get it. He could have his new life, but he would not be keeping any of mine. I turned off the ignition. The silence was absolute. I walked into my house, and for the first time in 7 years, I saw it not as a home, but as a liquid asset, and I was ready to liquidate. Standing in the center of the cavernous living room, the silence of the house felt different than it had an hour ago before. It was the peaceful quiet of a sanctuary. I worked 80 hours a week to maintain. Now it felt like the silence of a museum exhibit, pristine and empty. I walked over to the mantel and picked up a framed photograph from our 3rd anniversary. We looked happy. Grant looked adoring, but as I traced the glass with my fingernail, I realized that I had not been looking at a partner all these years. I had been looking at a dependent for 7 years. The narrative of our marriage had been carefully curated for public consumption. To our friends at the country club and his family, we were a modern power couple. Grant was the visionary entrepreneur, and I was the corporate strategist. But inside the walls of this estate, the dynamic was far more parasitic. I was the foundation, the roof, and the walls. Grant was the decoration. I carried the mental load of our existence. I remembered birthdays. I scheduled the gutter cleaning. I managed the investment portfolios. and I ensured the peace was kept during the holidays. Grant's contribution was his presence. He believed that simply being Grant Holloway was enough. He lived by a philosophy that life was meant to be enjoyed, not endured. That philosophy came with a hefty price tag, one that I paid without complaint because I thought we were building a future together. Grant did not just spend money, he hemorrhaged it. It was never reckless gambling or illicit substances. Nothing so tawdry. It was networking. It was brand building. It was a $5,000 set of golf clubs because he needed to impress a potential client on the fairway. It was the latest smart art home system that cost $10,000 because he needed to stay on the cutting edge of tech. Money flowed into our joint account from my bonuses and dividends, and it flowed out through his debit card like water through a sigh. Whenever I brought it up, he would smile that charming, boyish smile and say, "Babe, you know you have to spend money to make money. My big break is right around the corner." His mother, Marjorie, enabled this delusion with the skill of a seasoned diplomat. She never criticized me directly. Instead, she killed me with compliments that felt like paper cuts. "Zara is just so capable," she would say at family gatherings, patting my hand while I served the roast I had paid for and cooked. "She is a machine. I do not know how she does it. Grant is the creative soul, but Zara is the engine." It took me years to realize she was not praising me. She was dehumanizing me. To Marjorie, I was not a daughter-in-law. I was a high-functioning utility appliance. As long as the engine was running, her son could remain the carefree, creative soul. The pressure intensified whenever the topic of children arose. In the last 2 years, it had become a suffocating blanket over every conversation. Marjorie would look at my flat stomach with undisguised disappointment. Grant would sigh theatrically when his friends posted pictures of their toddlers. "We are just waiting until we are a bit more stable," I had said once at Christmas. Marjorie had laughed. A brittle sound. "Stable? You live in a palace, Zara. You have millions. If you are waiting for perfection, you will wait forever." Grant needs a legacy. They made me feel selfish for wanting to ensure we had a trust fund set up before bringing a life into the world. They treated my prudence as a character flaw, an inability to let go and love. I started to believe them. I started to think I was the cold one, the broken one. Reflecting on the last 6 months, the signs of his exit strategy were so obvious that I felt a surge of nausea. Grant had changed. The man who used to overshare every detail of his day had become vague. He started taking calls in the garage. He changed the passcode on his phone, claiming his cybersecurity friend recommended it. When I walked into a room, he would flip his phone face down on the table. A reflex, quick and guilty. "Just a surprise for you," he had said when I asked him about it once. "Do not ruin it." I had let it go. I was too tired from closing the acquisition deal to fight about phone etiquette. I told myself he was finally working on a project that would surprise me. I walked into the kitchen and stared at the granite island. My memory sharpened, focusing on a specific Tuesday night 3 months ago. The pieces of the puzzle clicked together with a sickening precision. Grant had been unusually attentive that evening. He had opened a bottle of my favorite vintage Cabernet and had dinner waiting when I got home. Takeout, but plated nicely. He rubbed my shoulders as I ate, asking about my stress levels, asking if I felt overwhelmed. "You do so much for us, Z," he had said softly. "I want to take some of the burden off you. I have been talking to a financial planner, a buddy of mine. We need to update our estate documents, just routine stuff, but it will make things easier if anything ever happens to you. You know, God forbid with how hard you work." He had slid a stack of documents across this very island. The tabbed pages were thick and dense with legal jargon. "It is just a family financial update," he assured me, handing me a pen. "It consolidates our beneficiary information and updates the power of attorney stuff so I can handle the small things while you focus on the big picture." I want to step up, Zara. I was exhausted. I had just come off a 14-hour shift. The wine had made me sleepy, and his words were exactly what I had wanted to hear for 7 years. I wanted him to step up. I wanted a partner. I did not read the fine print. I did not send it to my lawyer Miles for a review. I trusted the man I shared a bed with. I flipped to the sticky notes marked "sign here" and scrolled my signature over and over again. I remember Grant watching me. At the time, I thought his look was one of concern. Now, standing in the dark kitchen, I realized it was the look of a predator watching a trap snap shut. I had not just signed updates, I had likely signed away permissions that laid the groundwork for what was happening right now. Marjorie said in her caption that he chose happiness, but looking back at that night, I knew the truth. He had chosen theft. He had leveraged my trust and my exhaustion to pave the road to his new life with Tessa. The realization hit me harder than the photo had. They had not just cheated on me emotionally or sexually, they had prepared a legal siege. Marjorie's comment about paperwork being sorted suddenly carried a terrifying weight. I looked at the spot on the counter where I had signed those papers. My sadness evaporated, replaced entirely by a cold, calculating rage. Grant thought those papers were his golden ticket. He thought that because I signed them, I was beaten. He forgot one thing. In my world, a contract is only as good as the person enforcing it, and he had just declared war on the best closer in the industry. The phone felt heavy in my hand. Like a loaded weapon, I was terrified to fire. I stood in the center of my kitchen, the silence of the house pressing against my eardrums, contrasting violently with the chaos raging inside my mind. I could have called Grant. I could have screamed into his voicemail until my throat bled. But Grant was a coward. I knew that now. He was a symptom of the disease, not the root cause. The architect of this humiliation was Marjorie. I dialed her number. The ringtone buzzed in my ear. Once, twice, 3 times. I expected it to go to voicemail. I expected her to be too busy toasting her son's infidelity to answer the woman paying for the champagne. But she picked up. "Hello." Her voice was bright, breathless, and underscored by the faint, tiny sound of a jazz band playing in the background. She sounded like a woman having the time of her life. "Marjorie," I said. My voice did not shake. It came out lower than usual, stripped of all warmth. "I am looking at a photo of my husband standing under a wedding arch. Care to explain why he is marrying another woman while his current wife is sitting in the house she pays for?" There was a pause on the line, but it was not the silence of guilt. It was the pause of someone taking a sip of wine. "Oh, Zara," she sighed, the way one sigh at a child who has asked a foolish question. "I told Grant you would see it eventually. You are always glued to that phone of yours." The casualness of her tone struck me harder than a scream would have. She was not denying it. She was not apologizing. She was annoyed that I was interrupting her evening. Eventually I repeated, gripping the edge of the granite island so hard my knuckles turned white. "He told me he was in Denver. He is committing bigamy. Marjorie, this is illegal. This is insane." "It is only illegal if you make it ugly, dear," she replied, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, though it lacked any real softness. "And honestly, are you surprised? You have been so busy lately. You're always at that office. You barely notice when Grant is home, let alone when he is unhappy. You were too busy to notice he had moved on." "I was busy working," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I was busy earning the money that bought that suit he is wearing. I was busy securing the future he claimed he wanted." "That is just it," Marjorie cut in, her tone sharpening. "You are a provider, Zara, and you are very good at it. We are all grateful for your contributions. But Grant does not need a business partner at home. He needs a wife. He needs a future." "I am his wife," I snapped. "You are a CEO," she corrected, as if the title were an insult. "Tessa is different. Tessa knows how to take care of a husband. She cooks. She listens. She does not emasculate him with talk of mergers and profit margins. She makes him feel like a man." I felt bile rise in my throat. So he married her because she strokes his ego. He married her because she is giving him a family. Marjorie delivered the blow with surgical precision. Tessa is pregnant. Zara. She is already showing it is a boy. The world tilted on its axis. A boy. Grant had spent years telling me we needed to wait. that the timing was not right, that he was not ready to be a father, and all the while he had been building a family with someone else, someone younger, someone who did not ask him to sign a prenup, someone who did not ask him to get a job. A baby, I whispered, the fight momentarily draining out of me. A grandson, Marjorie corrected, her voice swelling with pride. Grant is finally going to be a father. He deserves this happiness. Surely even you can see that. You were never going to give him that, were you? You are too cold, too calculated. A child needs warmth, not a spreadsheet. I closed my eyes. The cruelty was breathtaking. They had rewritten history to suit their narrative. In their version of the story, I was the villain, the frigid, work-obsessed harpy who denied a good man his right to a legacy. Tessa was the savior. If he wanted a divorce, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage, he could have asked for one. He did not have to do this. He did not have to humiliate me publicly. He tried to spare your feelings, Marjorie said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. He knew you would make it difficult. You handle everything like a negotiation. Zara Grant just wanted peace. He wanted to start his new life without the drama. So what am I asked. The question hung in the air between us. If Tessa is the wife, and he is the victim, what am I? Marjorie made a small, dismissive sound. You were a phase, dear, a necessary phase. You helped Grant grow up. You helped him get on his feet. Think of it as a stepping stone. You played your part, and you did it well. But now it is time for the next chapter. I was a transaction. I was a venture capital firm that had provided seed funding, and now that the company was going public, the founders were pushing me out. They did not see me as a human being. They saw me as a resource that had been fully exploited. I see, I said. The coldness was returning, flooding my veins, freezing the tears before they could fall. So, you think you can just discard me? You think I will just walk away? I think you will be smart, Marjorie said, her voice turning hard for the first time. There is no point in fighting this, Zara. Don't make a fuss. It will only look bad for your professional reputation. Besides, everything is already in motion. The paperwork is sorted. I froze. What paperwork? I asked, my voice deadly quiet. The adjustments, she said vaguely. But the slip was already made. Grant handled the restructuring months ago. The house, the accounts, it is all set up for the new family. He said, You signed everything willingly, so don't try to play the victim now. You signed off on this transition. The memory of the papers on the kitchen island flashed in my mind. The family update, the beneficiary consolidation, Marguerite had just confirmed it. They were not just relying on my emotional collapse. They were relying on a legal coup. They believed that because I had signed those documents, they had successfully transferred ownership of my life to Grant and his mistress. They thought the house I was standing in belonged to them. They thought my bank accounts were now their nursery fund. You are right, Marguerite, I said. I forced my voice to sound defeated. I needed her to believe she had won. I needed her to hang up the phone thinking I was broken, not plotting. I signed. I guess there is nothing I can do. Exactly, she said, her tone returning to that sickly sweet condescension. Go get some sleep, Zara. You sound tired. Let Grant be happy. It is the least you can do after all these years. Goodbye, Marjorie. I said goodbye, dear. Do not wait up. I ended the call and lowered the phone to the counter. My hand was steady. My heart was beating a slow, rhythmic war drum.